And Hamas is dismissing President Trump's ultimatum to release all remaining hostages. Hamas says it won't hand over anyone until the next phase of the ceasefire is fully implemented. This comes despite the president threatening on Truth Social that there will be hell to pay if Hamas doesn't comply. And it comes after President Trump met with 8 released American hostages and after officials confirmed the administration has had direct talks with Hamas. Our chief international correspondent, James Longman, has more on that. Hi, James. So what do we know so far about these direct talks between U.S. officials and Hamas? How unusual is that?
Incredibly unusual, Diane. I mean, I would go so far to say as unprecedented. The United States does not usually engage directly with terrorist organizations, and yet on this occasion it seems to have. We think these talks have been going on for some time in Doha. The presidential envoy for hostage affairs, Adam Boehler, he's been taking the lead. Obviously, Qatar and Egypt have been instrumental in this kind of go-between between the United States, Israel, and Hamas. The focus has been on Israeli-American hostages. And the last of those who is alive is Eden Alexander, 21 years old. So the focus was on getting him back and also the other 4 remaining American Israelis who are still in captivity, their bodies still in captivity. They sadly no longer alive. So the kind of conversations have been around bringing both Eden and these 4 deceased Israeli Americans back, but also more broadly about trying to find a way to unstall this ceasefire and try to get the next phase going. But this is just part of Donald Trump's kind of unpredictable, I suppose you could call it, unconventional diplomatic style. And this statement he gave on on Truth Social was pretty extraordinary, even for Donald Trump. He said, "Shalom Hamas." Shalom means hello and goodbye. You can choose. Release all of the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all of the dead bodies of the people you murdered, or it is over for you. And he went on to say that he will give Israel everything it needs to, quote, finish the job. So, look, very hyperbolic from Donald Trump. Hamas not really raising to this in any way, saying that this just complicates the conversations further. And interestingly, Israel hasn't really wanted to comment at all. They issued a very terse statement just saying that the United States basically knows how we feel about directly talking to Hamas. And the subtext of that is not good. So we can read from that the Israelis are not happy about that. But of course, the Benjamin Netanyahu and his administration do not want to anger Donald Trump because they know that he is, broadly speaking, on their side and speaking their language. So, look, we will see where these negotiations go. But Donald Trump likes to rip up the rule book, and he's doing it again.
James, if the U.S. and Hamas strike a deal or the U.S. otherwise is able to get Hamas to release these remaining hostages, what would that mean for the war in Gaza?
Well, that goes to the central contradiction of this entire conflict. You and I have been speaking for months, years about this war and this sort of dual objective from Israel of both to get the hostages back and to defeat Hamas has meant that it's felt as though there doesn't seem to be any end in sight, because how can you end Hamas whilst at the same time trying to have conversations with them about bringing the hostages home and also thinking about a future without them? So, you know, who is going to govern Gaza when this war is over? That is the central concern of this entire conflict. The Arab countries led by Egypt have come up with a plan in opposition to the Trump-Gaza plan, which came out with so much fanfare a few weeks ago, that extraordinary video that was released showing an AI image of both him and Benjamin Netanyahu seeming to enjoy cocktails in Gaza. The Arab countries have come out with a plan which would see a 2-state solution, $53 billion plan that they envisage for the next stage. The next phase of the negotiation is to talk about what happens the day after the war. There was a Reuters report out earlier today which suggested that those conversations had even begun, perhaps with the Americans involved in Doha, but we're a long way off from any kind of solution here. And I would urge a fair amount of caution when it comes to anyone saying that they're on the edge of a deal, because we've had this time and time again. The deal is around the corner and then it doesn't happen. So we're a long way from a solution to this war, Diane.
Sure seems that way. And James, while all this is happening, Israel has cut off supplies to Gaza, food, fuel, medicine, saying it's trying to pressure Hamas to accept its ceasefire proposal. So what's the latest on those talks and how are aid groups responding?
Well, it's catastrophic for the people of Gaza, quite simply. There was some restitution over the last 5 days, over the last month, that this peace, the ceasefire has been working, that more and more aid has gone in. Some 600 trucks have been able to go in. They've managed to ease the concerns around famine. There have been some studies to suggest that there was deep malnutrition among some 3,000 children, 1,000 pregnant or breastfeeding women. So they were trying to get on top of this by getting all that aid in. Now, with that aid cut off, we're going to go back possibly to that horrific situation where it's a massive humanitarian crisis. I mean, 100,000 tents did get in during the last month of this ceasefire, but you're talking about more than 2 million people who live in Gaza, the great majority of those people displaced. We've seen the images of their homes completely destroyed. So the idea that they've got what they need to sustain them is just not true. Aid agencies really need to get back in. Diane.
All right, James Longman, thank you.